welcome Abigail once again. So Abigail is a product manager right now working at Seek Out. Her expertise right now is in talent acquisition technology, like which is what we most struggle with, right? We don't know whether our resume is going to with ATS or like whatnot. So she has the insight into it, and she helps organizations to attract top talent. And today she will talk about and give us a valuable advice in securing return offers from internship, building standout projects, and product management. So yeah, welcome Abigail to 3 p.m. podcast once again.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Mhm. So to start with, can you just walk us through your journey of becoming like a product manager at Seek Out after like your undergrad?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, I actually transitioned to product management from software engineering. It was my
Mm-hmm.
junior year of college, and I realized that coding is fun, but it's not something I want to do all day long. I enjoyed the coding of apps and websites and video games, like the visual aspects of programming, but I didn't really enjoy so much like the system architecture type things. And so I started investigating other career paths out there that could allow me to still interact with technology and still be in the tech industry, right? So stumbled upon product management after
Mm-hmm.
finding a YouTube video from Chloe Shi. She's a she was a Discord product manager and now does content creation full time, but she released a bunch of career videos on how to break into product management, what does it do? And I thought that the career path really resonated with me because product management focuses more on the what and the why of technology versus the how of technology. And that's actually something that I care more about is how does technology
Mm-hmm.
impact people and how could we build it such that it helps people in a useful way. So I just researched a lot about how to break into the role. I actually did some volunteer positions as a product manager just to get a feel for how what it might like be to actually do the role. And then I actually did a different strategy for breaking into product management. So I did apply for like the typical APM programs, but I actually took more of an inside out approach, I would say. So I focused on who is in my network that could help open the door for me versus just randomly cold DMing people I didn't know. And so actually the people that I reached out to were able to help me because I've worked with them before in different capacities in different past jobs. And I got a couple interviews through that and offers. And eventually I just chose to work at Seek Out. And that was through someone I actually
Mm-hmm.
had a past relationship with. And so I would say to anyone listening, you should definitely consider the people you've already built a relationship with to help open doors for you. Like, let's say you have a manager you have a great relationship with, or a professor, or maybe even a classmate that you've done group projects with that is now working at your dream
Mm-hmm.
company. You actually have a bigger network than you realize, especially if you're a student. And so that's what I did. And that's exactly how I broke into product management.
Got it, got it. And I feel like many of my friends are also taking the similar path. Like they initially start with like the software development part, and they somewhere realize, okay, this is not kind of like interesting part where they are not getting to like interact with the customer. They don't
Mm,
know exactly what they are building for and why
mm,
they are building the product
mm,
for. So that's where they want to like, as you mentioned, like you want to like you were more inclined toward knowing the how, why are we doing this, and like to
Mm-hmm.
improve on the product part. So that's where like you started doing the volunteer work, and then eventually you leveraged your close connections and like the network, and you eventually landed into your first role. If just to summarize your in your journey.
Okay.
that's right.
Right, got it, got it.
Thank you.
So talking about like I know like previously you did an internship right in Bank of America and other companies which is a very critical aspect of like a person who don't have like a formal experience to like
Mm.
do an internship, and I can see like you did an internship for like 2 long years. So can you talk about like what strategies uh if you can like recommend or like which you used for the interns and for getting your first internship is was it your networking part itself like which you used for the final product job or it was like different from the strategy and what things which student can do to like
Mm.
maximize the chance of getting a return offer.
So I have a very specific point of view on finding internships that is a little bit different than most people. So in the past, it worked pretty well to get an internship through cold applying. You would just submit an
Mm-hmm.
application and then you would hear back with a yes or no about moving on. And it was pretty easy to move on. Nowadays, it's much more competitive to get a job. And I think it's partially because of the plethora of online resources that's available to students. And so the field is now leveled where anyone can learn the same thing as long as you put the hard work in. And then, with the macroeconomic environment not being the best, I just think it's just a lot more competitive. And so you have to find ways to get around this competition. And so my biggest strategy that I recommend for students that most students are not doing right or don't know where to start is utilizing communities that are already willing to help you. So, joining communities like Rewriting the Code or Boba Talks or uh, Product Haven, just a bunch of free communities of people that are of the same background and have the same goal as you, and network with those people because they're in that community for a reason, and more than not they're willing to help you with like mock
Mm-hmm.
interviews, with recruiter connections for free,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is the best strategy at internship is number one, finding those communities, number two, joining them, and number three, really being a sponge in those communities, like having as many
Mm-hmm.
coffee chats as possible with those peers, asking for help in those communities, going to the events, just finding one community that you like the most, and then actually soaking in all the knowledge that they have to give you and then actioning on it, I think is the best strategy. Like, a little story is
Mm-hmm.
when I was applying for one of the top APM programs in the world, I joined this Slack group and I found a lot of mock interview partners through that. And that's what helped advance me to the final rounds of the APM program. And so I definitely believe that there are communities out there that do want to help. And so that is the best way to get an internship nowadays.
That makes
Got it,
sense.
got it. So to like just to summarize in a brief, like to get involved with like the community channel and try to like interact with most of the people out there and like
Yep.
do a coffee chat or like learn from them as much as possible and then find a way to like get the first internship role.
Yep. And to add
Got
on to
it. Yeah.
that, you should be networking with your peers because your peers are the ones that are going to be working at the companies and building the companies of tomorrow. Like, trying to network with like a C-suite executive who's been at the role for like 2 decades probably can't help you as much because they don't understand the nuances of the recruiting processes of today. But your peers do because they've been through it and are actually able to walk with you in the journey of finding a job. And so joining those communities is how you find those peers. Because let's say you have
Mhm.
a coffee chat with someone and then you lose contact with them, but you've built a strong foundation of a relationship, professional relationship, and then like they get into your dream company, and then months later you could say, "Hey, we mock interviewed together, would love a referral." And so it's just a ripple effect. Like you're going to meet so many
Mhm.
leaders who are building the companies of tomorrow and joining the companies of tomorrow. And so definitely utilize and soak all the knowledge from those type of communities. And that's why it's awesome that, John Hopkins has like a product management club. Like that's another example of tapping into a community. Like you guys are hosting like all these events and you can meet more people through those events. And so I just think it's wonderful that you guys have that space.
Yes.
Yeah, and absolutely, it makes sense to like interact with as much as peers you want. And like,
Yep.
thank you for giving a shout out to our club as well. And
Mhm.
also, we know that you are mentoring many of our students. So thank you for doing that as well. So So here is the another question for in the same part, like when you have got your first interns or internship offer, right? So most of the time, what happens is like the time span is very short, like it's just like 2 to 3 months of the time span where you are actually working with the company. So it becomes very hard, difficult for the interns to like measure their contribution or like to effectively communicate their contribution which they have like achieved in this short span of time. So can you talk about like how to better communicate or like to frame your contribution and from this short amount of time effort?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I like it. Okay.
Mhm.
So, just to make sure I understand, the question is asking, how do I maximize and convey my impact of during the internship because it's such a short amount of time. Is that right?
Right, right, that's correct.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, internships are very short, but that's what makes it awesome is because you get to learn so much in such a short amount of time. Like, I'd argue that my internship was actually a lot more stressful than my full-time job because I was
Oh,
stressed about the return offer and I was also really wanted to make an impact. And so the way you can maximize the internship is two things. So number one is networking as much as possible. And I know that networking can be kind of a scary word, but my definition of networking is building lifelong professional relationships with other people, similar to how you um, want to make friendships, right? Like you meet a bunch of different people, so you vibe with. Same with professionals, like you just meet different people and see who you would want to have like in your professional network who can help you, where you guys can mutually help each other build your careers up. So try to meet as many people as possible, like not even people like in your immediate team, but people outside of your team too, because you never know what kind of opportunities they might give you. Like for example, last summer I made friends with uh, the VP of pre-sales, and now he's one of my mentors, helps me communicate better. And then I also befriended um, one of the executives there too. And I know that I said that you shouldn't, network with executives, but I also believe that your primary focus should be networking with other peers for like referrals, mock interview practice, yada yada. But in terms of uh, like I would say coaching. I think executives might be really good for that. So I befriended someone like that, and it's been really helpful for my long term career. I know that I can lean on them if I need help professionally, like if I want to switch companies or if I want to do something else. Like I can always talk to those type of people. Um, and then so that's the first thing is relationships matter. So you got to build them because there's going to be a time when you're going to really need help professionally and you want to know who to call and who would pick up the phone for you. And number 2
mm,
is documenting everything and documenting it well and documenting things that matter. So like every time you learn something new, write it down. Every time you solve a problem, write it down. Uh, that's because you want to fight for your internship return offer. Like every internship I've done, I have been recording every single accomplishment I've done. And then I show it to my manager and say, hey, this is what I learned. This is what I believed I grew on. And here's why I want to return to this company. And that way I didn't have to like sit down at the end of the internship, remember everything. I had like a huge record of it all in one place. And so that's a
mm.
good way to remember everything you learned and be able to fight for the return offer.
Got it, got it. And yeah, it's absolutely makes sense to like when we are connecting with like the senior C-suite members. So it won't help us directly or getting the next offer, but it will eventually help us build a long-term career. Like what small mistakes we can avoid by having that conversation with the C-suite. And also to mention like to jot down your points of the accomplishment or the challenges which you faced which eventually how you solve it, the way you solve it will help you
Mm.
go through or like easily pass on the contribution which you are doing at the company to your senior manager when you're getting a return offer. So we are all like for the first 5 minutes, we're talking about how to get the return offer, right? So you talk about okay, you have to do the networking, you have to like write down the accomplishment, you have to connect with as much as peers you want. It's there in your connection. Can you also talk about like what mistakes you have usually seen interns make that hurt the chance of getting a return offer?
Ooh, I that's a spicy question. The biggest mistake that I've seen, and this is from lots of experience talking with interns and students, right, is not trying to fit into the team, because when managers are trying to determine of the intern class who comes back, they're also thinking about who fit in well culturally in the team. And so if you're not trying to get coffee and get lunch with your coworkers, if you're just kind of being a lone wolf, not really building relationships with your team members, then it's hard to justify why you should come back, because teamwork
Mm.
is an essential part of the workforce, is
Mm-hmm.
collaborating and getting along with your team members to actually get stuff done, because you can be amazing at your job, but if you don't know your team members and how they function and how to work with them, right, then it's hard to build great things together. Teamwork chemistry is really important. Actually, it's more important than people realize. And so I think that is something that can hurt your chances of getting an internship return offer. The flip side of that is you just don't want to be part of the team bonding stuff. Like you just want to do your work and go home. You have like other offers, like that's fine, but I'm just saying that if you want to be part of the company, you need to figure out a way you can fit in culturally with it. So definitely decide
Got
for yourself. Is this like a team that I enjoy working on? If so, I have to outwardly express my joy of working with them by going to team bonding events, sitting with them at lunch, getting coffee with them. So that's actually a big mistake that interns make. I think
it.
that's the biggest one. Yeah, I think that's the biggest one.
Got it, got it. And yes, it absolutely makes sense. Like you as a PM or like any, if you're not like an IC, you always work in team, right? And your effort would be, and whatever contribution you are doing to the company would be always be a overall group effort rather than like an individual effort to like having that team bonding and working you if you are able to work with the team is like a major factor of like
Mhm.
determining for the manager to like bring you back in. Yes. Akash, do you have any question at this point? Sorry if I
Yeah.
have missed.
No, no, no. I mean, it was going on well, the conversation. I really liked how you the way it was going. So I just want to like touch upon something very interesting that you spoke about. It was regarding coffee chats. Like it was you spoke a
Mm.
little bit about that in the previous topic, which I wanted to explore more. It was basically you said that we need to like talk to CEOs in the chat in communities. You need to have these coffee chats, which help a lot in getting roles, right? Uh, is there any actionable steps you think people can take to get these coffee chats? One, and second, what value can you give to the CEOs or like someone who's senior to you to actually get their attention and to actually have a authentic conversation with them?
Yes, I am a huge fan of this topic because it's literally something that can get you from point A to point B, like overnight or sometimes within hours. I've seen it happen to myself and I've seen it happen to other people. And so I'm going to give you guys a framework to follow. So you guys and anyone else who's listening to always, most of the time, have successful coffee chats. Okay, so number one is understand the intent of why you're reaching out. So oftentimes I get a lot of messages from random people just saying like, oh, it's great to connect, Abigail. Look forward to hearing your insights. And stuff like that is unhelpful for me. Like, I'm not going to respond to that because there's no action for me to take. There's no question, right? So I don't know how to respond to that, but I see it. So you need to understand the intent of reaching out for a coffee chat. Like, is it to get advice? Is it to learn more about what it's like to work at your dream company? Is it for a referral? Like, what is the purpose of you reaching out? Because remember, if you're reaching out to a complete stranger, there's not really much incentive for them to want to respond. And so, in general, understand the intent and convey that intent, right? So let's say you have a peer who is a product manager at Google, and you are applying for the APM position at Google and want to just get more insights on the process, learn what it's like to be an entry level PM at a big tech company. So you're going to want to convey that purpose. So you can say, you can look them up on LinkedIn, and there's probably, there's like a ton of people that are APMs at Google on LinkedIn. And you could just say like, hi, hi Manish, I'm Abigail. Let's pretend Manish is the Google APM. I could say, hi Manish.
Thank you.
I,
Okay.
yeah, I would say, hi Manish. I hope all is well. This is, by the way, this is LinkedIn DM. I would say, hi Manish, my name is Abigail. I noticed that you're an APM at Google. I find that very inspiring because that is my dream role. I'm also trying to apply to PM roles, but no luck so far. Would you be willing to share a little bit more about your journey? I know you are probably really busy, so no worries if not. So that is the template that I like to use. And I know I said it kind of fast, but basically to break it down for you, I introduced myself. I said who I am. I'm an aspiring PM. I said the context of why I'm reaching out, like I, want to apply to the APM roles, and I want to understand a little bit more about the process for that. And I also use something I call the struggle approach, where I also say kind of candidly, like, hey, I've been applying to a lot of roles, but I just haven't had much luck with landing anything. And I wanted to just hear a little bit more about their journey, what it's like being, a Google employee. What do they like about their job? What do they wish they knew when they were trying to apply? So things like that. And then I also used like a reverse psychology approach that's kind of also used in sales. That is, I know that you're probably really busy, so no worries if not. That kind of gives them more comfort to respond. So I've been using that coffee chat message for like a couple years, and 7 out of 10 times I would predict that it works. And I also share it with my mentees, and they've finally been getting responses back. And so with a message like that, it's kind of hard to say no unless you just are really busy or don't see it. But if you just approach it with genuine curiosity to make a new connection, which is what LinkedIn is supposed to be all about, then it's hard for the other person to be like, no, I don't really want to, unless they're super busy. Because there's nothing wrong about that message. You're just trying to meet people. And so what do you do when you actually get the coffee chat?
Yeah.
So my hot take is, if you want a referral and you see a job opening at Google or something, I don't think you should go on a coffee chat to ask that, because some people are just uncomfortable with giving strangers referrals. It's a waste of your time, like setting up the coffee chat, doing 30 minutes, pretending like you're interested, and then asking for a referral. Like, you might as well just straight up ask for a referral on the LinkedIn DM. Like let's say you found your dream role and it's open, and you just are like, you know what? I'm just going to shoot my shot and ask for a referral. Some people don't care. They're like, hey, I get a financial incentive from this, I'll refer this random person. But other people are like, no, I want to be able to know this person. So it's better just to ask like straight up in the LinkedIn DM. I only recommend coffee chats if you're actually trying to build a relationship with that person, get a mentorship, get real sound advice, maybe get another connection through that. That's when I would recommend a coffee chat.
Okay. So if I'm understanding it clear, it's for the long term. It's more like you build connections and you just wait it out until like you get opportunities in their company later on, so that you can
Exactly.
ask them for help. So
Exactly.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why coffee chats are like misused most of the time, as you said, for referrals, technically. I think one of the most important things you mentioned is like I wanted to talk about is the recruiting landscape. You did you are working at a company that is like that helping companies recruit students or like aspiring PMs, right? So you might be having a lot of knowledge in this space as to how recruiters are actually filtering candidates, how what kind of things are they looking at. So I just want like a backstage knowledge of like what is going on behind the scenes, like how are they seeing, is ATS actually a thing that we should be worried about, all those kind of questions, if you can like shed some light on this.
Absolutely. So I love that you brought up the ATS piece because there's just so much fear mongering with the ATS that it's like this mysterious being that auto rejects you if you don't fit 100% of the qualifications. And that's not true. I actually have used an ATS before. It's called Greenhouse, just to poke around in it. And I also use ATSs to to help with my job, because some of our software actually integrates with companies' ATS with the company's consent, and so we use that data to find candidates they've previously talked with, so warm candidates, or to or to uh, do review applications really fast. So I do have a lot of expertise with how ATSs work, and essentially the truth, the truth, y'all, is that an ATS is just like a file cabinet. It just stores your resume in a big database, and once you apply, so let's say I applied to the product manager job at Google, the recruiter has an open requisition, and then that requisition holds a bunch of resumes inside of it, and the recruiter sees all the resumes in like that file cabinet structure, and what they can do is they can click on um, the one of the applications, and they'll probably see the resume and they can read through it and choose whether or not to move stages, so move the initial application stage to the loop stage, which is like probably a phone screen. Um, and there are some advanced capabilities to let you filter candidates. And the way it works is it's actually really simple. There's no AI involved yet. Like I've never seen an ATS that has like advanced AI capabilities. But what they can do is they can do a keyword search, super simple, like, hey, if let's look for, you know, candidates that have 2+ years of leadership experience, and it would probably like just show the applications that have the word leadership on it. And so the resumes that don't have leadership on it, they're not auto rejected. Like recruiters still have to choose and click a button to reject someone. There's no like auto reject in a sense.
Auto mass rejecting, like rejecting 500 applications at once.
Yeah, like the recruiter has to choose for themselves to do that. Like there has to be like a button, and there has to be a confirmation message, and then
Mhm.
the system is smart enough to obviously pull their name and give a generic message, because it's not feasible to reject each candidate individually if for like those big tech companies that receive like tens of thousands of applications. But there is no AI that automatically rejects you because you don't have a certain like keyword. um, and so after you have those keywords, right, and it shortlists those applications, the recruiter can go from there and choose to reject or move you forward. And so that's basically how it works. It's pretty. It's not as advanced as people think.
Okay. So, I mean, thank you for like explaining in so depth, like how actually what's the perception of ATS is and how it is being actually used. It's not like very advanced software or something or AI agent. So, I'll like to like talk more about the filtering part which you mentioned, right? The which the recruiter is doing. So, so as a recruiter, if I am having like for example, 10,000s of application for a big tech company. So is there a possibility that the recruiter will choose the 100 for a first 100 application and then do a keyword search for those first 100 application only? Or is it like the first filtration is based on the keyword part, the time doesn't matter? How does this actually work?
Yeah, so I personally have never done recruiting myself, and I can't like speak to every recruiter's workflow, but the keyword searching definitely helps with shortlisting, not shortlisting, but with trimming down the 10,000 applications to maybe like the 1,000
Mhm.
applications. But that's in my opinion, I think that's kind of biased because how do you know the other 9,000 aren't good candidates? Like, actually,
Right.
recruiting is hard. Like, just because you review them in the order that they applied doesn't mean that the person that applied first is the best candidate. Like, you might be missing out on the other 9,000 that are actually amazing candidates. Like, you just don't know. Something else they do that might cause you to get that automated rejection email is if they ask binary questions like, are you willing to relocate? And then you say no. And then there's actually an ability on some ATSs where you can say, um, send the reject email to candidates who selected no on this question.
Mhm.
And so those are the
Got
type
it.
of things that are kind of like standard filtration questions like, hey, we don't have the budget to support people who need to relocate. So yeah, that's an example. But um, there are some recruiters.
Mhm.
I've talked to a couple recruiters that actually get like a couple thousand, and they actually review them individually. So it's
Mhm.
definitely on a recruiter on by recruiter basis. Like some recruiters want to use keywords. Some of them want to say, hey, like let's look at each individual resume and then move on. They have like maybe 1,000, and so it just depends on the recruiter's workflow. But the point to drive home here is that there is no magical AI agent that's going to reject you if you don't fulfill this threshold. Like if you like let's say Abigail only fulfills 80% of the qualifications, so I'm just going to auto reject her with this magical scanner, you know.
Mhm.
There is no ATS
Mhm.
that does that today to my knowledge.
Got it. Yeah, and absolutely, it's good that you mentioned about the point of like the relocation specifically, like if like the binary question that can lead to like a mass rejection, and especially for us, like for talking about me, I'm an international student here, so this there is always this question to me, like when I apply for like new job, it's just like, do I need a sponsorship? Yes or no? And I think majority of the time it's like if you are yes, it's the auto rejection case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish that job descriptions actually said whether or not they can sponsor so you don't waste your time.
Mm, yes. Yeah.
Abigail, I had I was just curious about one more thing. So, as a recruiter, like if I was a recruiter and I get like so many resumes, I really don't know if that position needs if I'm going to do a keyword search, as you said, that would remove like people like who have different positions, but they have same like skill set or like they have like what do you say, parallel domains where they've worked or parallel skills, I mean positions they worked in. So I want to know, like, do they just do only the keyword search and send all the filtered resumes to the hiring manager, or do they actually go through each one of them? Like, do they understand how it works, like, or
Mm.
and also do they look at cover letters second?
Like I said before, every recruiter is different, but to my understanding, the recruiters that I've talked with, like once they like look for certain keywords that appear in your resume based on the job description, uh, they have to individually read the context. Like just because someone has like cloud on their resume doesn't mean that they've used cloud in the way that they are supposed to.
Exactly.
That's what good recruiters do, is they understand the context of cloud, right? Like you could say that you have a cloud certification, but then there's some people that have built large scale cloud technology projects, right? So that's where the recruiter actually has to really have some sort of domain expertise and or understands the role really well. But again, all recruiters are different, and I believe that if you have one master resume that captures what the role is supposed to do, then I believe you'll hear back a lot more from companies. Like I've actually in my mentorship program, I've reviewed so many resumes, and most of them, after having implemented my advice, have moved forward without having to tailor their resume to each role. And so I don't think you need to tailor your resume to each role. Like that's too much work, especially when you're a student. It's better just to have as many relevant keywords as possible in one resume.
And you also spoke about having those keywords in your projects and in your experience. Like implicitly, you did talk about it. You're like, instead of having a certification, it would be nice to have a project on cloud. So does that? I think that also adds to value to the recruiter, where you have done some projects in cloud or
Yeah.
anything.
Demonstrated experience is always better than certifications, because certifications anyone can just do, follow a tutorial and copy the but like with projects you actually are doing the work and learning.
So are
So
you totally against certifications?
uh I definitely think that certifications can help if you have like zero experience, but if you were to choose between like a volunteer PM job versus a free online course with a certification, do the free PM volunteering work. That has way better ROI. Also, my computer is all of a sudden about to die, so I'm going to get my charger real quick.
No problem.
Mhm.
Okay. Guys, we'll be waiting for some time. Viewers,
Okay. So I think,
technical difficulties.
Akash, what Abigail is trying to say is like usually the recruiters which are seeing our resume, right? The keyword is the first thing they check about. And I agree what you're talking about is the transferable skills, which, for example, me as a candidate have worked in certain different industry. That skills might be transferable, like the communication part, the stakeholder management part. But it becomes very difficult for the recruiter, at least for the first
Exactly.
round of filtering. So I feel like what Abigail is trying to mention is like keyword is the thing which will help you pass the ATS, and then it's the second stage would be the recruiter when he would be
Yeah,
actually reading and learning about the transferable skills.
makes sense. Totally makes sense. I
Yeah.
think that's like a good summary of what we were talking about till now. I think that
Got
that
it.
makes it a lot more clearer.
So just to like mention, tell you about also Abigail, I was just talking about like recruiter initially go for the keyword filtering itself rather than the transferable skill. Transferable skills are the second filtering element once your resume has passed the ATS part, is what I was like talking about. Hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
I
And
I don't like the
sorry.
term pass the ATS. Like I think that the ATS doesn't do anything. Like the human has to intervene. Kind of like any like Discord. Like Discord doesn't technically do anything. Like you have to like send messages yourself. So with the ATS, the recruiter has to log into the ATS and
Mhm.
do the keyword searching themselves. They have to physically choose to reject or
Got
accept
it.
the candidate. Like
Got it.
Yeah,
ATS,
So it's
ATS does everything.
just the database part, which is like used to record the resumes and the inputs,
Yep.
and the recruiter is the one who has to decide how to use those
final
data.
decision.
Yeah. So, Abigail, you also mentioned about making a master resume, right? And having like most of the keywords in that and not like tweaking it for each job role. So, do you think like, I mean, I also agree to that point to up to some extent. So, my specific question is about the skill section, because skill section is where the most of our keywords are mentioned, right? So do
Yeah.
you think like the
So
keyword
fill it up.
section should be keyword section should be modified, or like we should keep it as a master keyword section as master skill section as well?
Ooh, I have two opinions for this. So number one is recruiters who are mm, let me rephrase that. So essentially, recruiters don't like it when you just copy and paste like all of the product management keywords in there. Like I've reviewed resumes that have phrases like backlog management, prioritization, stakeholder management. Those are things that if a recruiter saw that, they'd be thinking, "Oh, did they just copy and paste that from a list on online somewhere?" So those aren't really I mean, yes, they're skills, but they're not reflective of the skill section. So the skill section is supposed to just be a summary of skills you've used in the in the work experience section. So for example, let's say you did do prioritization like or A/B testing and you have that written down in one of your past roles. Um, that would be okay to include in the skill section because it's already mentioned in the work experience section. But you shouldn't just list stuff to list stuff because it would just be like, okay, so you know how to do backlog management. Um, um, are you just copying that from somewhere? So that's something I definitely recommend against is just copying a list of things and then pasting it on your resume. The better thing to do is actually to group your skills into different buckets. So let's say you're a technical product manager, so you could have a section in your skills that talks about um, programming languages that you've done because you were the PM for that, and maybe you've done a little bit of coding. There's also a section on like mythologies that you've used, so like Agile or Scrum, um, and then maybe there's a section on tools you've used, which is actually super important for product management because I think that backlog management and stakeholder management, those are things that are implied with the role. But things
Mm.
like tools are things that could be explicitly listed on the job description that you should use. So things like Tableau or Mixpanel, those are good tools that product managers having skill in that would help your application. And if you don't already know it, you could try to do a project with it, like a quick weekend project, like, hey, let's try to build
Mhm.
a simple app and then connect it to Mixpanel and see what happens. That is a good example of putting skills in your resume.
Got it. Got it. So rather than just like, of course, we should have like a master resume, and then rather than just copy pasting the keywords from the job description to the skill section, rather than this, your skill section should be the highlight of the skills whichever you have described in your actual experience in your resume. Yeah,
And
Yeah,
makes sense.
absolutely. But if you, let's say you see a job description and there's something mentioned on there like A/B testing, and you've done A/B testing, but you forgot to list it on your resume, then definitely put it on your resume.
Mm,
and if we don't and if we haven't done A/B testing, and I mean, for example, if we know how to use a software but we haven't built a project out of it, for example, Microsoft projects or Access or like something like that, which we have done in the past. I mean, like we've done for like some academic work. So you are telling that list them in the skills but always have one point in the work experience or projects, or is it
Exactly. Yeah, you need demonstrated examples of how you use the skills.
okay?
So
That's a very
if you,
good point, actually.
yeah, because if the recruiter's reading your resume and you're just listing off like everything a product manager should do, and there's nothing in your work experience that says how you did that, then they'll be like, I don't know about this person.
mm.
That's something that every most of them do. I think this mistake of like just copying the job description, putting in ChatGPT, and saying, "Get me the keywords," and they just put that in their skills section and they fill it up with that, and they're like, "Okay, now I'm going to pass ATS now." That's how they do
Well,
it.
Well, I think that's helpful for reading a job description and making sure you meet the qualifications already. So let's say you do that, you use the ChatGPT method and have it extract the top keywords. Let's say you have 4 out of 5 of them. And the fifth one is something you have done before, but you forgot to put it on your resume. I believe that's actually pretty helpful.
But if you haven't done it, then you have like a weak link while getting into ATS, right? If I do not put that one thing. So it's
Yeah.
like a double-edged sword right now.
you find your blind spots.
Agreed. But I agree that having, as you said, having a master resume with all the keywords matching your work experience does matter. And as you said, we can always do a weekend project to get that one skill that we are missing.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I am such a huge advocate for personal projects. Like they are what gets you the experience without having to do a formal internship if you have weak
Mm-hmm.
links. And it's now easier than ever to do a personal project with AI. Like, and I also think that personal projects help build your personal brand. So I'm excited to talk about that too.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a very good segue into what we are planning to talk about right now.
Yeah, even I was about gonna ask like how to differentiate like how a person who
Mm.
might don't have like formal PM experience can differentiate themselves in like of course today's competitive job market. So yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts upon the personal projects and branding.
Ooh, I'm so excited to talk about this. So, I actually just read a really interesting Substack newsletter article that I highly recommend you guys read. I'll send it to your LinkedIn, Akash,
Mm-hmm.
when we're done. But it's called Outlier Actions by Andrew Young. And it was saying how right now is very competitive and how do you differentiate yourself. And he was talking about something that you have to do called outlier actions, which are what can differentiate you and actually get you the job. And you
Mm-hmm.
might be thinking, why do I need to be an outlier to just get a dang job? Like, what's the point of that? And I think that there's two ways of looking at it. Number one is sure, you might just want a job. If you just want a job, why are you vying for the top APM roles? Like, those are really, really hard to get. There's like 2 freaking spots for like 10,000 applications. Like, you're going to have to differentiate yourself. There's just no choice. Unless you know someone. If you just want a job, I mean, you can just work at like the healthcare, like, I mean, the insurance or finance industry. Those are way less competitive if you're looking for a product manager or software engineering jobs. Those are not as prestigious and way less competitive. So if that's your mindset, do that. But if your
Mm-hmm.
mindset is, hey, I want to become a product manager at a startup, or I want to be a future CEO of my own company someday, then you have to figure out what differentiates you. And so if you're in the camp too, which is the camp I'm in, I'm very, very driven. Um, then you have to figure that out. And I think that a way you can differentiate yourself is pursuing what makes you passionate and being unapologetic about it and not asking for permission. Because if you want to change the world, you shouldn't need to ask for permission. You should just do it. Right. So let's say you're really passionate about mental health, then build something like start a podcast, build an app, uh, do a newsletter around mental health. Like there's nothing stopping you from doing it. And it's actually what will differentiate you because most job seekers are just focused on getting that job. And so that's okay. But like if you're trying to get into one of those top roles, you have to figure out something that differentiates you. So that is what I would call the builder outlier. That's the archetype that builds stuff that helps the world in some way. You could also be a connector outlier, which is an archetype that connects the world together, like hosts events. Like, you guys might be the connector outlier because you guys are working on this product manager club and gathering people together with similar interests and passions. So that's the connector outlier. And that is something that differentiates you because not every job seeker is going to start a PM club. And the fact that you guys did makes you a connector outlier. And so figure out like what you're passionate about and what you have time to do, which you will make time for because you're passionate about it. But what you truly want to do, right, is what will make you decide what you want to build, and then you'll become an
Mm,
outlier and differentiate yourself.
Got it. And it makes sense. I mean, like, we all are passionate about building things, and like, it's just that we're like in the race to get that job. It's just somewhere we just like get like diluted somewhere. And in that perspective, I wanted to know, like, if we are building a passion project on the side, how much has that helped you get like jobs, and like how much has that, is that just something that is you do it for your own satisfaction, um, or you do it for the long run, or is that something that you've seen help you in the short, like in the short term as well, like somewhere where you've been able to like showcase that talent
I
or
love
like
that
that
question.
experience?
Yeah, I love that question. So you can think of it as a double-edged sword. Like it helps you in the short term and it will help you in the long term. A primary example for me is doing Magnify Wellness. So I started it with a short with actually a long-term intention where I wanted to connect youth to mental health support, but I didn't know that it would have short-term benefits. Like that was just I just didn't know at the time when I was a freshman in college.
Hmm.
The short-term benefits was that I could use it during interviews. Like I could use it as justification for why I could be a great PM, because great PMs build products that are helpful to people and they bring people together with their leadership skills. And so I just highlighted the transferable skills that Magnify Wellness gave me in my interviews. Like I talked about, scaling the chapter program to over 100 chapters. I talked about leading an 80 plus volunteer team. I talked about becoming top 6 in the world for mental health innovations at the Bay Area Global Health Innovation Competition. So things like that made me stand out and be an outlier among the sea of applicants.
Hmm.
So in hindsight, it gave me long-term benefit because it's solidified my personal brand on LinkedIn. Like it's something I can always say, this is mine, I built it. Um, but it also gave me short-term benefit too that I didn't know, which was the helping me get through interviews. Like I always talk about Magnify Wellness in like all of my product manager interviews, and the recruiters are always like, wow, that is amazing, thank you for helping like connect youth. Hey
Hello.
there.
Oh,
Hey, yes, thank
perfect.
you for joining on your phone.
Yeah,
Really appreciate that.
my computer literally just like shut down.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's okay.
But
That's okay.
this adds authenticity, y'all. For anyone who's listening, this
Mhm.
is like the authentic me.
Yes. I mean, this is also perfect. I think we can see you clearly right now. You're saying something, Abigail. You can continue on. You were talking about personal branding, right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
we can hear you, Abigail.
All right. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about?
Yeah,
Uh,
if you the point which you were talking about the personal branding, right? If you can just expand upon that point. And I
I
really
mean,
like the point which you mentioned, like when you are really passionate about something, like and
mhm,
you should take action, and you should be unapologetic about it. Like if you think it is good and if you are really passionate about it, work on it. That will eventually help you in
mhm,
like in the short term as well as in the long term goals. And you would be always be confident about things which you have built. And also, you mentioned about the builder arc and the creator arc. Like, at least find something and like work on that path. So, okay. So moving forward, if you can like talk about, I'm sure that you are helping your mentors a lot, mentees a lot in your resume search, resume and this job search and the interview prep. So if you can like briefly talk about the three tips or the three resources for the resume, the job search, and the interview prep, which usually you recommend. That would be the great value addition at this point.
like some
Sounds great.
technical. Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's see here. Number one tip is to have as many coffee chats as possible with your peers. And in addition to that, I understand that as a student, you're very busy. You might have part-time jobs to help pay for school. You're doing difficult STEM coursework, perhaps. I get it. It's rough. Like you don't want to be told, "Oh, I got to go on a coffee chat with someone." In addition to cold applications, like I totally understand. But if you know you want to be the best in your field, you have to do what it takes. And also, I had to work multiple part-time jobs to pay for school. I was also doing the internship grind. I went to a school with terrible career prep resources. I was in the trenches not too long ago. I get it. And so I think that a way you can do coffee chats with everything else is to have a theme to your day. Like have like Tuesday be your coffee chat to be your coffee chat day, and just stack all the coffee chats you can in one day. And then the other days are like grinding on upskilling yourself with a volunteering position, working on your passion project. It could be sending out applications to jobs you're an immediate fit for, but at least you have a day that you dedicate to coffee chats that is like 4 hours. I'm going to do 3 coffee chats in this chunk of time. And so that's what I recommend for the time management aspect that, you guys might be thinking. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to like I said earlier, find a community that you enjoy being part of at your school or online and stick with it. Like try to be a leader in it, or if you don't have the capacity to be a leader, try to befriend as many people as possible and make those connections. At my school, I'll be honest, there wasn't a lot of ambitious students there. And so I actually had to look online to find clubs. And that really helped me like get referrals, get mentors, get mock interview partners. But you have to be willing to open yourself up to people. You can't just like sign up for a group online and then say this group sucks. Like you actually have to participate and like go to the events. Like if you're interested in this club, JHPMC, you actually have to come to the events. You got to meet the event organizers. Like you got to participate and engage. So that's tip number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then tip number 3 is to use the job search strategy of applying to roles that are in a relevant industry that you've done things for. So for example, let's say you built a successful hackathon project in the financial technology space, and you also just happen to know a lot about crypto, and you just are interested in stocks, and like that's just like your thing, right? Then I recommend you actually apply to financial technology companies like MasterCard or financial technology startups, because you'd actually have more to talk about with the hiring manager, and then therefore they would make a stronger case to hire you. Like, oh look, Abigail's done like this Gen Z financial literacy app, and she also knows a lot about the Bitcoin stuff. Like, that's really cool. Let's hire her. So that's a strategy that I think more job seekers need to do, is applying to roles that they actually have relevant industry experience for, especially for PMs. Like if you have relevant product knowledge of building like collaboration tools for teams, and the company you're working for is trying to do that too, then you reference that, and then that will set you apart from other candidates.
Got
Wow.
it. Got it. I mean, yeah, that's really amazing and like summarizing and giving out the top 3 tips. Like the first is have try as much as coffee chat you want. Second was like do as much networking and show up on different events or the group and the community. And the third is like build a differentiation of for from your previous job experience, or like the project, the hackathon, like or the industry or your passion project or your interest. So yeah, that's definitely like a very great summarizer of like whatever we have talked about till now.
All right.
Yes, absolutely. I love the questions you asked. They were so thoughtful
Mhm.
and well researched, and I'm super excited to see what you guys will build next.
Mhm.
Definitely. And we would love to stay in touch with you for any kind of advice and
I
mentorship.
can't
Maybe.
hear Akash talking, by the way.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so let me just summarize what Akash was talking. I'm not sure why you can't hear you.
I was
So Akash
wondering
was
why
saying
there was
like
silence.
I should
I
use
was
sign
saying
language.
no, it's not required. I'm here. No worries. So Akash was saying like thank you for like being here, and we'd love to like stay connected with you and to like get your mentorship in future as well. And thank
Yeah,
you for taking your time out in this weekend and like sharing your knowledge with our audience. So,
yeah,
yeah.
this was super fun. So if any of you guys that are listening, or even the wonderful podcast hosts, I'm starting a Discord community soon of people who want to be top 1% in their field, but LinkedIn doesn't do a good job with connecting you with people who are in that who have that mindset, I want to build an inclusive space for that. Like, let's say you want to start your own podcast, or let's say you want to start a mental health app. Who do you go to? Who is actually dedicated to helping you with that? And who won't, charge you a crap ton of money just to talk with these people? Well, I want to build that. So if you're interested, DM me on LinkedIn and I can give you early access for free.
Yeah, I mean, thank you all the audience for tuning in. And if you are interested in joining the Abigail's Discord channel, reach out to us or reach out to Abigail directly. We all are more than happy to like share the knowledge. And thank you all for tuning in on this 3 p.m. podcast. And look out for notification for the next week 3 p.m. podcast. All right, so have a good rest of the day, everyone. Bye
All
bye.
right. Have a good day,
Signing off.
everyone. Thank you for
Bye bye.
having me. Bye.
Bye bye.